Hi friends, this is Kim from Creative DIY Purpose. Welcome. Today I'll share with you 7 ideas on repurposing common items that you may have in your kitchen. For the first project, we're going to upcycle this wooden tray. I had this 2-piece set in my booth for several months and I had it marked down at a really low price and even put it on sale, and I can't believe that nobody snagged it. I actually really like it. But in person, it is much more orange than what it looks like here on the video. So I took some fine grit sandpaper and sanded along the very top portion and scuff sanded that center area. Next, I apply a very thin coat of some Dixie Belle paint. This is the color Anchor, and it is silk paint, so it's a primer and paint in one. I didn't worry too much about getting up along the edges because I'll run the sander back up over the top. I did paint the sides and applied 2 coats of the paint to the underside. This is after the first coat on the bottom, so it definitely needed a second coat. The graphic that I will use is from 2x4 block printables over on Etsy, and this is a set that I have. I chose to print the image on a brown paper bag cut to fit a standard piece of copy paper. And then I taped the bag onto a piece of cardstock so that way it wouldn't jam up my printer. And after I take the tape off, I'm trying to fit that image into the center of this tray. I think it's going to work well. I didn't want to go any bigger with the graphic because it would, I didn't want it to be cut off. And this brown paper bag was heavy duty, so I was trying to hold on to it, tear along the edges because I do want a rough cut, but I didn't want to tear into the image. So it took me a little while. You could probably go around it up on the top with maybe a X-Acto knife or a pair of scissors and then do a rough cut, or even try to take a damp paintbrush and wet it. That probably would have been a lot easier, because this took me a lot longer than it should have. But I did get it to where I wanted it by folding it in half and tearing along the edge that was a little bit longer. So that way I would have the graphic even on both sides. I'm going to apply some of the DECOPOSED gel from Redesign. You could use Mod Podge or whatever your glue mixture of choice is. I did half of it at a time because that brown paper bag was so thick. I really had to press down and hold it into place for a little bit. You could also use brown craft paper to get the same look. Taking a cloth, I pressed down any air bubbles, but I did leave the wrinkles in there because I wanted it to have a aged look. I forgot to tell you, when I first showed you the image on the brown paper bag, you can tell that it's been wrinkled, and that was done on purpose. Once the glue had been applied and the brown paper bag started to adhere onto the wood board, I took the cloth again and made sure there was no air bubbles. Next, I applied a thin layer of the DECOPOSED gel over the entire graphic, because I want to seal that ink in so it doesn't smear. The downside is when it dried, it was on the shinier side, and I didn't really like that. But we're going to fix that right after we add some antiquing wax to the wood frame. I sprayed the outside of the tray with some water and then put some antique wax onto a cloth and applied it that way. I really didn't want the antique wax to be too heavy or too dark, and this seemed to work. Once I had a thin coat on there, I wiped back any extra with the cloth, and once the whole piece had a chance to dry, I sprayed it with some matte sealer from Rust-Oleum to kind of tone down the gloss. And let me know what you think I should do with the stainless steel insert, if I should leave it as is and still use it with this piece, or make something separate from it. And below in my description box, you will find the direct link to 2x4 block printables over on Etsy, and check out all of Betty's amazing designs. For the next repurposed kitchen item idea, I believe that this is an egg poacher, or maybe to hard boil eggs with. So there was a vintage piece that I had in my booth and it didn't sell. So I added a little bird's nest from Spanish moss and some paper shreds and a bird, and tied on a little lace ribbon and some greenery. And I think it came out simple and sweet. What do you guys think? The next, we're going to repurpose this fryer basket, and this is a super quick project. I picked this up on the side of the road for free, and it did not have any grease residue. I don't think it was ever used, but it did have some really cool rust spots up on the handle, and I think it's a really cool piece, and I want to repurpose it for my home. So I am a new chicken mama. I have a few little chickens and they started laying eggs. So I wanted something that I could put on my coffee bar that would hold the eggs. If you don't wash them and just have them out on the counter, they actually last longer than what they would if you wash them and put them in the fridge. So in this basket, I'll put the older eggs. These are the ones that I would use first or to give to friends and family. And then in the smaller basket is where I'll keep the fresher eggs and kind of keep them rotated so that they don't go bad. All right, so now that they're all in there, I want to put a little something on that handle. I cut a piece of fabric off and tearing off the edges because I want a rough edge. And I was thinking about, using an ink stamp for the words eggs and put it on the basket. And I'm like, well, it kind of covers up the look of the eggs, which I like. So I tied it on to the handle and I kind of like the look of that. So I'm going to go with that and get out the typesetting ink stamps from IOD, and let's use some lowercase letters and stamp the word eggs on it. And then we'll tie it back on there. Actually, I just need to slide it over the handle, then just tighten that knot and adjust the fabric where I want it. Probably have to trim it off. So I had it on here like this for a while and I'm like, it really needs something else. So I grabbed a few sprigs of dried eucalyptus, and I think 3 sprigs will work just fine. I'm going to pull the 3 stems through a little bit more on the other side of that knot, so that way they're tucked in there a little bit better. And then tie the knot tight, and that's it. It's a simple idea that I think you could do with any type of frying basket or maybe even a metal strainer. So let me know if you had a nice rustic basket like this, what would you put in it? I think it would look nice with some different plants inside. And here's a simple idea to repurpose a frying pan. I had a double-handed frying pan that I purchased at a thrift store. I used some E6000 and attached a metal candle holder. The pan was originally silver and I spray painted it with black paint. I thought that this would look so nice with just some simple pine cones and a candle in the middle. You could even use a battery operated candle. And I thought that this would look nice with some red cranberries in it for around the holidays. I do have a few more different style frying pans if you can share any ideas with me on how you would repurpose them. Next idea is taking a kitchen tile and turning it into a little riser. I spray painted one of the Dollar Tree glass candlestick holders that I had, and I really love this tile. I love the color of it. So I used some E6000 and put that together. These little risers sold very fast in my booth. So anytime I see the wood or the natural tones, I love to pair it up with a beautiful black base. So I know this next one, the repurposed cheese dome, is definitely not a new idea, but anytime I find one of the cheese dome bases that has already been painted and is not food safe, I do love to repurpose them. This was just some white paint from Dixie Belle, sanded around the edges, and added a vintage label from Redesign. And I've seen them displayed with a variety of items, everything from a candle to a plant. Or you could look for the perfect base, give it some height, and turn it into a riser. All right, and this next idea certainly, again, isn't a new one. It's just a simple teacup and saucer. I love this one. This was actually given to me at my daughter-in-law's bridal shower. It was an Alice in Wonderland tea party. That was 7 years ago, and that original plant died, and so I added a new one. This piece is definitely a keeper for me. So our fall routine is definitely in full swing. I wanted to show you a few pieces that I've been working on. This was a cabinet, and I was able to finish the base. I painted it with Black Sands silk paint from Dixie Belle, and then applied a coat of black wax from Dixie Belle as well. Try to get into the cracks. I wanted to give it some depth. So this bottom base has 2 drawers. So this is a piece I'm working on for a friend, and it's in the steampunk theme, which I really do love creating pieces with this theme. And this one is extremely dramatic. I believe the paper was from Redesign, and I've used it on other projects, which I'll show you in a minute. And I added some copper gilding wax and cleaned up that hardware. Here was a sign that I upcycled, again in the steampunk theme, painting the frame black and applying copper gilding wax. And here was another shelf, and I wish I had the before picture of this shelf because it was truly destined for the trash. And I actually kept this piece. All right, and here is the top of that cabinet. Look at those doors. I can't wait to get my hands on the doors and make them pop. The top I was able to prime, but some repair work needs to be done on the shelves in there before I can paint it. Now here's a chair that I worked on really quick. That's what it looked like on the left. And usually you guys know that if I have a single chair, I usually make the little benches out of it. But look how cute this chair came out. And I used the same stencil, the one from Stencil Smith, which is linked below, to upcycle that chair. Here are 2 end tables that I picked up. They were really bad, and I wish I wouldn't have done it. They got 2 coats of primer, 2 coats of silk paint from Dixie Belle, a little bit of copper gilding wax on the detail, and a very faint stencil detail on the top with some white wax. And these end tables, along with some other pieces of mine, are proudly over to one of my friend's shops. I'm so proud of her. And that dry sink sold before I even got home. So I took another piece of furniture out the next day. And here's a piece that I'm working on with a friend, and we're almost finished. Friends, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Have a super blessed week, and I will see you next week.